Firstly, a thanks to Bandai Namco for the review copy. Oh my goodness, Digimon World Next Order is certainly addictive. It originally came out way back on the PS Vita and then the PS4, and has finally seen its release on other platforms, those being Nintendo Switch and PC. When it first came out, it split opinions between fans and critics alike, but for reasons I'll go into, it's one that I've always found very compelling, despite its flaws. We'll go over all aspects of the game, as well as performance in both docked and handheld, looking at frame rates, to find out if your next order of business will be the new Digimon World on Switch, or if Bandai should have saved their time poking him on the platform. Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp, let's find out. If you're familiar with the game already, let's start out with the visuals and performance. Everything's running at native resolution, as you'd hope, from a game that was originally ported from the PS Vita. You're looking at 1080p and 720p when playing in handheld. It also targets 60 frames per second, and certainly in the few opening areas, it manages to maintain that frame rate. It feels like a big step up compared to other, more recent monster hunting games, which is a bit of a damning statement in and of itself. Now, rather than being fully open world, this is open world with interconnected loading areas, with each area being a lot smaller than you'd find in something like Scarlet and Violet. That being said, however, the Digimon actually looks surprisingly good, with over 200 in the game. It uses a bright colour palette, if a little oversaturated, which, although a matter of taste, didn't really suit my preference. That performance carries over into handheld mode as well, but it doesn't maintain that in all areas. The lava area seen here particularly suffers from some stutters. It's never exactly what I would class as bad though. I just think if the game can't maintain 60, a locked out 30 is the way to go, and it could definitely maintain that. Regardless though, you'll spend a great deal of time in the areas that do run flawlessly, and when everything's working at its best, the frame pacing is also excellent. Load times are reasonably minimal, and then you've got the artistic design, as well as the geometry. On this front, it looks noticeably last gen. Geometry detail is quite low, with slightly unnatural looking rocks, and a general lack of detail in terms of foliage. The world can feel a little bland in this regard. If we focus on handheld for a moment, the image quality remains exactly the same. It is important once again to note that although this is Unity, which is notorious on Switch for never being perfectly smooth, it provides a reasonable handheld experience. Now, one area of performance which I was unable to test is the online functionality, but I can confirm that the online functionality is in place and that the servers are also up. This includes global rankings, and I guess it really depends on the uptake as to how that's going to function on Switch and whether those servers will stick around. The audio quality is absolutely fine. It includes voice acting, and you can adjust the sound effect volume as well as music and voice. It is a game you could potentially play for hundreds and, dare I say, even thousands of hours, with a few sound effects that are going to get a little grating, such as when your Digimon are protesting, but I found by turning the sound effects volume right down you could resolve this mostly. It's not an ideal solution, but I wouldn't personally put the soundtrack from Toshiyuki Kishi as one of the best in the series. I think that's more linked to the fact that narratively it doesn't have a huge deal to offer. So visuals and performance then, while it shows its age, it runs far better than some other games on Switch. View distance is fine, textures are reasonably low, and geometry, well, visuals and performance score 15 out of 20. As for audio and music, that also scores 15 out of 20. Which takes us then on to story gameplay and controls. The narrative centers around two characters who you'll get to choose from. There's no character creator here, without a great amount of exposition surrounding these two protagonists, other than that they're high school students who were once huge Digimon fans but have now forgotten everything, which is coincidental timing as they find themselves sucked semi-unwillingly back into the Digimon world. If you're after a strong storyline, this isn't the place to find it. Even some of the lines of dialogue seem to allude to its weakness, with characters referencing the coincidence of all of these events, and it just so happens that the place you arrive at is suffering from a problem with some out-of-control Mega Digimon. And of course, you offer to help out. It was always the gameplay for me that was the real hook, and let's be honest, that's the way it should be. Here you get to choose 2 starter Digimon from a pool of 10, and it very quickly takes a different approach. If you're as ancient as I am, you'll remember the Tamagotchis, these small computerized devices which felt like next generation consoles, enabled you to nurture and care for small pets. And that's essentially what you'll be doing with your 2 starters. They'll begin as babies, and through training them up or fighting, you'll be able to digivolve them, but they will need you to feed them, each having their own favourite meal, which you'll have to find out through trial and error, ensure that they get enough sleep, and that you're never too far from a toilet. Thankfully, there are mobile ones in the shape of a swan that you can take with you, so there's always that. And not meeting their needs will drastically affect their mood. Also, if they don't go to the toilet, they get cursed. I think I've experienced that one myself. The initial gameplay experience can feel a little confusing. You'll start out in the small town and be tasked with heading out into the wilderness to fight against other Digimon, but also talk to those who are willing to come back and help build up this place. It's confusing initially for a number of reasons. Firstly, as you take damage, you'll be questioning how exactly to heal up your crew. Secondly, the narrative is so flimsy, you may find yourself looking for that next objective, but realizing it simply isn't there at this moment. Overcoming these hurdles is relatively straightforward but not very well explained. You'll have a training gym which is essential. It not only allows you to quickly improve the statistics of your Digimon, you can also rest in here to restore the fatigue levels that build up as you continue your fights. Now, fatigue and tiredness are actually separate. The higher it is, the more likely your Digimon will get sick or unwell or sustain an injury, and this will also affect their mood, and in turn the mood will affect their ability to fight. It's shown quite well with this triangle, which visualizes the relationship between yourself, your Digimon, and them with each other. Now, the training is really simple, but you don't actually have to focus on it if you don't want to. As you'd expect, you can level through combat. When you encounter another Digimon in the field, they'll either attack you or they'll run away if you're too high level, but you can still engage with them. Battles are semi-automated. Through using the L and B bumpers, you can target individual Digimon in your roster and then shout commands to them. Top tip, unlock the block command very early, as without it, you'll get destroyed by even other lowly Digimon. If a fight's too tough, you can run away, but if you do fall, then you'll return back to the town and your teammates will not be best pleased. Another initial struggle is trying to keep them satisfied. It felt like, regardless of what I did, they were always grumpy. But once you get to grips with how this system works, it's much easier. Chiefly, any request bubbles that pop above their head, the faster you cater to them, the happier your companions will be. At random points, they'll come and speak to you. They might be happy about a recent fight or upset about the type of food you're trying to feed them, and you have to make one of 3 different choices. Do you praise them? Do you scold them? Or entirely ignore them? And depending on the type of Digimon that you've chosen as one of your starters from the 10 available, that will affect how they respond. It's another thing that you'll have to figure out with trial and error. This Tamagotchi-like approach to Digimon can be seen as either a positive or a negative. Personally, I found that it meant I became far more attached to them, and it felt more organic when evolution finally arrived, as it's through your praise, the combat, and the way that you play that allows for this to happen. On the flip side of that though, there will be people who wish they could just go and get the exact one they want. It's just not the way it works here. There are charts online so you can track potential evolutions, but it will feel much more random than the equivalent in a modern Pokemon game where you can just go and get what you want. Then you've got exploration. Now, you are free to go wherever you want, but will be severely hindered by your current level, both the level of yourself as well as those Digimon. Enemies in the first few areas are okay, but the difficulty ramps up incredibly quickly, and it can be tempting to simply hang back in the first area, but the punishments for death aren't too severe, so it's still worth going off and exploring if that's what you want to do. As far as the controls go, I'm never a fan of not having a dedicated run button, particularly when the characters amble at these speeds, and the semi-automated nature of the battles can feel a touch disconcerting at first until you get to grips with the block mechanics. But there's something here, something so addictive. You'll find yourself in a real rhythm, training up, collecting the resources you need, going out on runs almost, trying to push that bit further into the world or complete a side quest you were previously too low rank to overcome, and most of the activities in the game, even those more mundane ones, will gradually enable you to increase your trainer rank, and then subsequently put points into a number of different areas to boost your ability to handle your Digimon, facilitate the relationship, or just become stronger overall. Adding new members to your town, seeing it grow, leveling up your character into a number of specific areas, and then occasionally getting that delightful reward, Digi-Evolution, God that's difficult to say, that you just didn't see coming. For those reasons, gameplay for me scores 16 out of 20. The controls are also straightforward, but can occasionally suffer from camera issues. They score 15 out of 20. Digimon World Next Order will cost you £54.99 or your regional equivalent, continuing the precedent set by Nintendo that of releasing older games at current prices. And it's really not something I endorse. It runs at native resolution and is targeting 60 FPS, but aside from that there's nothing here that justifies that premium price. Now, a new buyer is obviously going to get the value based on the gameplay and the experience it offers. And if the Tamagotchi-like systems click with you, there is a physical of this available as well, which is already cheaper than this RRP. As alluded to at the beginning, it's a very compelling experience, but it's also one with a lethargic initial pacing that you'll have to push through to get to the real meat. On balance, I would give value 10 out of 20. As mentioned, I really enjoy this game, but it will take around 5 or 10 hours just to get into it, and I've always liked the idea of building up a stronger relationship bond between the player and their Digimon, as opposed to having a larger roster that you don't really give two hoots about. But the asking price, once again, is too high. It gets a SwitchUp score of 71%. Let me know in the comments what you think of this one. There's no need for that price in my opinion, and I know that these gameplay mechanics won't sit with everyone. Still, I enjoy it. Thanks to all of you that enjoy the content, to our Patreons and members. If you want to check out any of that stuff, as well as a very active Discord channel, all the information is down in the description. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!